With this module, we'll be introducing material from Chapter 33 on the imperative mood. And our first paradigm is the present imperative. The imperative mood has two-person forms. The imperative shows up in the second person and also in the third. The second person imperative is the form that we use to give commands. And unfortunately, the second person singular is the most irregular of the forms. The way we form the present imperative is we take the present tense stem, the connecting vowel, and then we add the imperatival suffixes or endings. And for the second person singular, most of the time it's the epsilon, but that's not always the case. Depending on the vocabulary word that you're studying, it might be that you see an irregular suffix ending for the second person singular form for the imperative. But most of the time, it'll be an epsilon. For the third person singular, it's to. For the second person plural, it's te. And for the third person plural, it's tosan. Let's use our paradigmatic verb luo. And so you take the present stem, lu, and for the second person singular, for a regular verb like luo, we just simply add the epsilon, lue, and it's a command. So sometimes you'll see this simply translated as use, but since it's a present imperative and the continuous aspect is being emphasized, the kind of action is continuous, we want to somehow convey that in our translation. So we're going to put in parentheses, continue to lose. So while the command is loose, and you're addressing you singular, to show the present continuous aspect of the command, you can translate it as continue to loose or keep loosing. And the third person singular form is you take the stem lu, you add the connecting vowel, epsilon, and then you add the suffix ending to, lueto, and this is translated let him or her, parentheses, continue to loose. So you can translate it as let him or her loose, but to show that continuous aspect, let's put in parentheses, let him, her continue to loose. How about if you're addressing a group and you're giving them a command? Then you take the stem lu, connecting vowel epsilon, add the imperatival suffix ending te, and luete means loose, but you're speaking to a group, a you plural. But again, we want that continuous aspect. So we'll put in parentheses, continue to loose. Yes, luete does also have the exact same form as the second person plural, present active indicative. So you can translate luete also as you all are loosing, and context will tell you whether it's the indicative mood or the command. And then the third person plural, you take lu, the stem, add the connecting vowel, and add the imperatival suffix ending tosan. So let tosan means let them, the third person plural, continue to loose. What about the middle and passive imperative? Again, the second person singular is the most irregular. Most of the time, the suffix ending u will be used for the second person singular, but not always the case. Let's use the regular verb lu. So we take the stem lu and then add u to it, and I'm gonna translate this passively. Although this is the form for both the middle and the passive, we're gonna give the translation passively. So this would be parentheses continue to be loosed. So be loose would be the passive command, and then we're going to put in parentheses continue to show that aspect. How about the third person singular? Lu plus a connecting vowel plus setho. So luestho is let him, her continue to be loosed. So let him or her be loosed, or let him or her continue to be loosed. Again, a passive voice translation. How about the second person plural? Lu plus the epsilon connecting vowel plus sithe. And this could be translated as continue to be loosed, but in this case you're addressing you plural, so be loosed or continue to be loosed, lueste. And then we take the stem lu, add the connecting vowel epsilon, and then sithosan, and that's your third person plural, so let them continue to be loosed. And these are the forms for the present imperative. Now let's go over the aorist imperative forms. And we'll be translating this using lu as our paradigmatic verb as loose, let him, her loose, loose, but it'll be a plural form, and let them loose. Notice that we don't use the continue to in our translation because this is an aorist imperative, and therefore the aspect's undefined. The second person singular, just like the present imperative, has an irregular form for its verbal suffix. Normally, you can use son, but some verbs don't use son. And so case by case, vocabulary by vocabulary word, you'll have to just simply remember that the second person singular form might not always be son. But for luo it is. So you just take lu, which is your stem, and the combination of the tense formative sigma plus on for the suffix ending gives you looson, and that's loose. And then from this point on, the rest of the paradigm will follow the formula of having an aorist stem. So go to your principal part, add the sa tense formative, add the imperative endings. So you have the stem, you add the sa tense formative, you add the imperative ending. Lusato is let him, her loose. For the second person plural, loose, where you're commanding a group, not just one person. Lu the stem, sa the tense, sa the tense formative, and te the ending, lusate. Notice that you will not confuse lusate with lusate, because in the indicative you have the augment, but in the imperative you don't. So this can only be translated one way in the imperative tense. This is lu plus sa plus tosan, and let's let them loose. So let's say the aorist active imperative forms for luo. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Lusan, lusato, lusate, lutosan. And what about the aorist middle? So these are just the middle imperative endings, because with the aorist tense, it always has a separate form than the passive. And so it also has a second person singular irregular form. Most of the time, psi will work, but not all verbs will use psi. Luo does. So you take the stem lu, add psi, and lu psi. In the middle way would be loose, parentheses, yourself. Kind of a reflexive translation, but we'll just translate it that way. Loose. Let him or her loose him or herself is lusasto. For you, loose yourselves, plural, is lusaste. And then let them loose themselves, luthosan. Let's say these forms altogether. These are the aorist middle imperative forms for luo. Lusai, lusasto, lusaste, lusthosan. With those, and with that, we covered the aorist active imperatives. We covered the aorist middle imperatives. And now we're going to cover the aorist passive forms. The way you form the aorist passive is you take lu, the stem, and then you add passive voice morpheme, they, and then the imperative endings for the passive voice, aorist passive voice, t, and to, te, and tosan, and then you'll get the form. So it's fairly simple. So you take the stem lu, add they, add t, luthenti, and that is passively be loosed. Lu theto is let him or her be loosed. Luthete, be loosed, but here you're addressing a group, so it's plural. And then luthe tosan is let them be loosed. So let's say these forms for the aorist passive imperative of luo. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Lutheti, lutheto, luthete, luthetosan.